guys. For one reason or another, you guys seem to enjoy me talking to the camera, which is ironically one of the things that I like doing the least, but you all seem to enjoy it. So let's see if I can't solve some problems, answer some questions, or at least give you some of my slightly retarded insights. So anyways, tonight I figured we would go over my MCX, continuing down our rabbit hole of all my gear and gadgets that you all might have an interest in. So MCX, this is a 12.5 inch Legacy MCX. It is currently kitted out with a AAC M4 a Arasaka 600 series, a full power PEC. Let's see, using that mod light button, been happy with that, and the EOTech EXPS 3.0, and a Edgar Sherman sling. So this rifle, so far in running this thing, it's been a pretty good rifle. It shoots fairly well. You know, a 5.56 rifle for the most part is going to be fairly similar. Recoil impulses vary from rifle to rifle, but for the most part, for me, it's always come down to ergos. Obviously, coming from a AR platform that I'm typically running, this is similar, but a little bit alien. Some of the things that have stuck out to me in terms of what it does really well has been that folding stock feature and doing it well. A lot of the guys have been running those law folders on their ARs. Personally, I had some problems with the law folders. Particularly the back end would kind of droop down. So I ended up getting rid of mine. So for solving that, you know, there's a couple different manufacturers that have the side folding, under folding, all sorts of stuff in terms of a rifle that has that capability. But I think the MCX does it well. You know, especially when you start looking at some of those rattlers and the smaller 300 blackout rifles. That's a really compact package and definitely has it's a good argument for a truck gun. But other than that, in terms of using this rifle, what has been interesting to me is the recoil impulse. While it is more snappy, it is a fairly sluggish recoil. It's, how would you describe it? A heavier recoil than a standard AR, but not quite as snappy as something that comes to mind is like a 40 cal pistol. Those things are very, very snappy. Whereas this seems to be a little more sluggish, probably due to the fact that it's just a lot more mass that it's having to move back. So it is definitely manageable in that spot. Some of the things that I have not liked about it, which is probably more to do with me not being quite used to it, is because you don't have an adjustable stock, because this is the, I guess, Cape Moss stock, as everyone has grown to call it. Since it's not adjustable, I have noticed that when I'm doing high ready, I tend to not clear my garments every time. That is more to do with a training scar, or whatever you want to call it, from using a standard AR platform, and because I've adjusted it to the length that I'm used to, I just need to press this out a little bit more. The rest of the rifle has a Mil-Spec Trigger. It's not bad if you've gotten accustomed to some of the other triggers that are out there, like a Geisley. I've been using the LaRue on my 14.5. It's been working well. The Mil-Spec Trigger starts to stand out more. So while it is not insurmountable, you can definitely still run and gun with it. I have noticed that for me, I have a lot more instances of trigger freeze, but that's more of training. It's not really the rifle. I'm a strong believer in, if you put the reps in with anything, you'll get used to it and you'll be able to run it fairly well. Moving up from there, The front end, while it is a little bit more girthy, it is manageable, especially when you have a laser. I historically have tried to stay away from pressure pads as much as possible. So on my lasers, I'm actually using the button that's built into that device. So you can tell here, it's a fairly tall boy. I mean, it's pretty wide. So when you are shooting under night vision, I end up tilting the rifle a little bit more in order to activate that button reliably. It does lead to one of the issues, which is that I end up getting a little more gas to the face. When I have the rifle like this for doing that night shooting, that I'm kind of in line with that gas system, so I'm going to be taking a little more gas to the face. It's funny is I remember one of the big selling points for all these piston systems has been that you're going to take less gas to the face. They're like, oh, well, it's much better. It doesn't shit where it eats. It's a much better for suppressed usage. In my experience, if you have a well-tuned AR, this isn't quite doing that. And because the different barrels you can get for this is pretty limited, you can't really tune that to what you're wanting to shoot. While it does have an adjustable gas block, I haven't been able to really get it to the point that I'm like, okay, I'm not taking that much gas to the face. So just keep that in mind. Again, one of the things I had read and seen and heard from people was that the piston systems are going to end up really helping with suppressed fire. I haven't seen that in my experience. So for whatever that's worth, just keep that in mind. Otherwise, let's see here. It balances fairly well. A lot of people were telling me, hey, it's really heavy when you start having the piston up front. And it might be that I've gotten used to having so much stuff on the front that front heavy rifles don't seem to bother me anymore. But this doesn't seem to really be an issue. I'm able to run this just as quick as my 11.5, but as a whole, I haven't seen that issue with the weight up front. So because this is a legacy, there are some limitations. When SIG made the jump from the legacy model to the Virtus model, there were some slight changes. There were improvements in terms of the rifle's overall performance, but more so also on support side. So the issue they were having on this original legacy model was that they were wearing down the bolts faster. So to fix that, they put in a different bolt and they changed the barrel, specifically, I believe, the gas port location. So if you have a legacy, I would recommend trying to pick up some spare legacy barrels. I shoot out barrels fairly often. They get a couple years and then they're done, and I gotta put in a new barrel. So if you do have a legacy, I would recommend going ahead and trying to find some barrels before those are kind of unobtainium. So because those changed, at some point what I'm going to have to end up doing is switching out the complete upper. Because they changed the gas block location, that also means it changed the window to access the gas block. So even if I were to get a different handguard, it wouldn't fit on my legacy upper. That port is in a different place. Now you can go ahead and put a Virtus barrel on your just legacy complete upper, but you're not going to be able to easily access the adjustable gas block. So just something to keep in mind there. So I'm going to end up, like I said, I have a spare barrel for it. I'm going to end up, shooting those until I've shot out both barrels, and then at that point I'll end up getting a new upper. But if you are in the market for an MCX, just try to keep that in mind. You're going to want to, if you can, get a Virtus. The legacy ones have some challenges in that ownership. But yeah, guys, all in all, it's been a good rifle. It's definitely just something different. Especially, I think it's ideal for that truck gun role. But in terms of what it's bringing different to the table from a standard AR, you're not gaining a lot aside from that stock and the reliability from a piston system. So, gun to my head. If you said, Alden, you have to grab one rifle, would I grab the MCX? No. I would grab an AR. I would probably grab my 11.5 that I've shown you guys. But at the end of the day, the big reason is support for parts. And while the folding stock is nice, the folding stock is not enough of a benefit for me to make up for the excessive cost for finding the parts and pieces to support this. But it's a Gucci gun. It's a Gucci rifle that is unique and different, which is great. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to make a call and say, okay, I'm going to drop $3,000 on a rifle and not have it kitted out at all, or I'm going to drop $1,000 some odd on a BCM, and I'm going to be able to get that thing fairly well kitted out. Because by the time you're looking at this system and looking at all these attachments and all this stuff on there, it gets pretty pricey. Whereas for $3,000, I mean, you could buy a BCM and a good suppressor for that, or go ahead and have it kitted out with your optic and flashlight, and you have a ready to go rifle. So anyways, guys, yeah, if y'all have any questions, by all means, hit me up, leave a little chats and stuff, and I will try to respond. Hopefully you all will find my review process or my insights on these annoying enough that I don't have to speak to a camera anymore, but we will see. Y'all have a good one.